Imagine walking alone through the darkness, knowing that by sunrise, the brother you betrayed years ago could be waiting to kill you. No army to protect you, no place to run, only fear. And then suddenly, someone appears in the shadows. A stranger, silent, watching. Before a single word is spoken, the stranger attacks. What follows becomes one of the strangest and most mysterious encounters in all of biblical history. Battle so intense that it leaves a man permanently wounded, yet spiritually transformed forever. But this was no ordinary fight, because the being Jacob wrestled that night was not entirely human. Some say it was an angel, others believe it was God himself. And by morning, Jacob would walk away with a new name, a new destiny, and a limp that would remind him forever of the night he fought with heaven. This is the story of Jacob wrestling with God. Long before that mysterious night, Jacob was known for something dangerous: deception. From birth, Jacob's life was unusual. He entered the world, gripping the heel of his twin brother Esau, as though already trying to overtake him. Their names would become famous, but so would their rivalry. Esau was strong, fearless, a hunter of the wild. Jacob was quieter, calculating, observant. But Jacob wanted something that belonged to Esau: the birthright, the blessing, the future. And one day opportunity appeared. Esau returned from hunting, exhausted and starving. Jacob saw weakness and exploited it. "For a bowl of stew," Jacob said, "give me your birthright." Esau agreed. But that was only the beginning. Years later, Jacob committed the act that shattered his family forever. Their father Isaac had grown old and blind. It was time for the sacred blessing meant for the firstborn son. But Jacob and his mother Rebekah devised a plan, a dangerous one. Jacob disguised himself as Esau, covering his arms with animal skin, so Isaac would mistake him for his hairy brother. He entered the tent trembling with fear. Isaac touched him, listened to his voice. Suspicion filled the room, but in the end, the deception worked. The blessing was stolen, and when Esau discovered the truth, rage consumed him. The Bible says Esau planned to kill Jacob. So Jacob fled into the wilderness alone, and for years he lived far from home, carrying the weight of fear, guilt, and the consequences of his actions. But eventually, the past came looking for him. After many years away, Jacob decided it was finally time to return home. But then terrifying news arrived. Esau was coming to meet him, and he was bringing 400 men. Jacob's blood ran cold. 400 men was not a welcoming party. To Jacob, it looked like an army. Every memory of betrayal came flooding back. The stolen blessing, the lies, the hatred in Esau's eyes. Jacob became desperate. He divided his family and possessions into groups, hoping that if one was attacked, the others might escape. He sent gifts ahead to Esau: goats, camels, livestock, servants, anything to calm his brother's anger. But deep inside, Jacob knew something terrifying. There are moments when no amount of gifts can erase the past. That night, Jacob led his family across the river Jabbok. Then he returned alone. The darkness surrounded him. No servants, no family, no distractions, just Jacob and his fear. And that was when it happened. The night air was cold and silent. Then suddenly, movement. A figure emerged from the shadows. No warning, no introduction. The stranger attacked Jacob without saying a word, and Jacob fought back. Dust exploded beneath their feet as the two wrestled violently in the darkness. Muscles strained. Breathing grew heavier. Neither would surrender. Hour after hour they struggled, but something about this opponent was unnatural. This was no ordinary man. Jacob fought with everything inside him: fear, regret, pride, desperation, pouring years of pain into the battle. The stranger remained impossibly strong, yet strangely, he also seemed to be testing Jacob. As the night dragged on, Jacob slowly realized something terrifying. This being could overpower him at any moment. And then it happened. With a single touch, the stranger struck Jacob's hip. Instantly, agony shot through his body. His hip was dislocated. One touch. That was all it took. Suddenly, Jacob understood. Whoever he was fighting possessed supernatural power. This was no human traveler, no thief, no wandering soldier. Jacob was wrestling with something divine. The sky slowly began to brighten. Dawn was approaching. Then the stranger finally spoke. "Let me go, for it is daybreak." But Jacob did something shocking. Despite the pain, despite exhaustion, despite knowing he could not win, Jacob tightened his grip. "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Think about that moment. The deceiver who once stole blessings through lies was now desperately begging for one, honestly. For the first time in his life, Jacob stopped running, stopped manipulating, stopped pretending. Broken and wounded, he clung to God with raw desperation. Then the stranger asked a strange question. "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. And in that moment, Jacob was forced to confront who he truly was. Jacob, the deceiver, the manipulator, the heel grabber, the man haunted by his past. But the stranger responded with words that would change history forever. "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with men, and have prevailed." Israel, a new identity, a new destiny. Jacob entered the night as a frightened fugitive. He emerged from it transformed. Trembling, Jacob asked the being a question. "Tell me your name." But the stranger did not answer directly. Instead, he blessed Jacob. And then suddenly, he was gone. As the morning sun rose over the horizon, Jacob stood alone, wounded, limping, changed forever. And Jacob named that place Peniel, meaning face of God. Because, as he said, "I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." Imagine the realization crashing over him. The being he wrestled all night was no ordinary angel. Jacob believed he had encountered God himself. The terrifying mystery of that night would echo through history for thousands of years. But Jacob's greatest test still remained. Esau was coming. As Jacob limped toward his future, he saw his brother approaching with 400 men. Fear returned instantly. This was the moment he had dreaded for decades. Jacob bowed repeatedly as he approached Esau, preparing for rejection or death. But then something unexpected happened. Esau ran toward him, not with a sword, not with rage, but with tears. The two brothers embraced and wept together. The hatred Jacob feared for years had dissolved. And suddenly Jacob understood something profound. The real battle had never been against Esau. It had been inside himself all along, even today. The story of Jacob wrestling with God remains mysterious and unsettling. Why attack Jacob in the middle of the night? Why wound him permanently? Some believe the struggle symbolized Jacob's lifelong battle with faith, guilt, and surrender. Others believe it revealed a deeper truth. That transformation often comes through struggle. Jacob walked with a limp for the rest of his life. A permanent reminder that encounters with God are not always comfortable. Sometimes they break you before they rebuild you. And perhaps that is why this story still fascinates millions today. Because deep down, many people know what it feels like to wrestle. With fear, with regret, with the past, with destiny, with God himself. And like Jacob, sometimes the darkest night becomes the very thing that changes everything. And from that night forward, Jacob was never the same again. He walked away wounded, but transformed. The man who had once lived by deception and fear now carried a new identity given directly from heaven itself. No longer would he be known only as Jacob, the deceiver. From that moment on, he would be called Israel, the one who wrestles with God. But the story doesn't end there, because that name would one day become the name of a nation, a people, and eventually a land that would shape the course of history forever. All because one man refused to let go until he received a blessing. And maybe that's the real lesson hidden in this mysterious encounter. Sometimes the greatest transformations happen in the middle of our darkest struggles. Sometimes the battle you're fighting is the very thing preparing you for your destiny. Jacob entered the night broken by fear, but he walked out carrying purpose. So the next time life feels like a battle you can't win, remember Jacob, the man who wrestled with God and survived. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more mysterious and powerful biblical stories brought to life